How's it going, guys? Welcome to a new series here on the channel. We're going to be doing RimWorld Vanilla. Now, I know, we already started a previous one. So for any of you who have been watching the channel for a while and are like, hey, whatever happened to that old RimWorld series? And especially if you were watching it, I do apologize for why that series kind of ended. It did just end abruptly. However, my intention was never not to finish the series, but unfortunately trying to go back and complete it just didn't make a whole lot of sense for me, because there were a lot of components that I just wasn't sure the direction I was going to go for in some aspects. So we're going to be doing a fresh start in RimWorld. Still all the same sort of beginner friendly vibes. That's really going to be our goal, and we're going to kind of go through a lot of that, right? And so today we're going to be diving in to the very beginning of hopefully a new extraordinary adventure, right, in this awesome, amazing game. Now, of course, this is going to be episode 0, so if you don't want to watch kind of all the explanations of how everything works in terms of setting up your campaign, definitely go ahead and skip to episode 1. But otherwise, for those of you who do want to see kind of that in-depth look at getting your map set up, getting your crew selected, a little brief explanation of the game difficulty, and just kind of all those things, and really just kind of an overview of the game itself, definitely stick around so that way you guys can hopefully learn things, because again, this series is going to be geared very heavily for beginners, and really it's just going to be a getting started guide for beginners, and no mods will be used, so it's 100% vanilla, all DLC, all those fun things, right? And with that, let's get into it. So before we get into any sort of action, we need to give kind of an overview of what is RimWorld, right? Because if you're a first-time viewer to the channel, or even just a first-time viewer of RimWorld itself, RimWorld is a unique game in that it's a sci-fi colony simulator, and you just manage a group of survivors. You crash land on an alien planet, so kind of like Factorio in that regard, but instead of you being the person who crash landed, you're kind of an omnipotent being. I'm kind of not really sure if you're like a AI telling the people where to go, or if you're basically like whispering in their ear like, hey, go do this, and in that regard. So in that terms, not sure really where the player fits into that, but overall you manage your group of survivors, so you can kind of think of it like that. And so really your goal is to build a thriving colony. And it's not going to be easy. There's plenty of challenges that this game is going to throw at you, and you'll see that as we go through. So you'll face everything from resource management, weather, wildlife, and really just overall just all sorts of little things. So with that, if you look over here on kind of the right-hand side, so of course you have the tutorial, which I highly recommend playing. If you're new to RimWorld, go for it. Definitely play the tutorial. It's going to get you into all sorts of things. So of course it's going to say welcome to RimWorld, because I've never touched this, and so it's going to just go through how to do everything. Now I'm not going to go through that section. We're going to go ahead and talk basically similar to how the tutorial is going to explain things, but we're going to try to explain it just a little bit better. So we're going to go ahead and click new colony. Now you're going to immediately be kind of swarmed with all these different things you can click, right? So you have crash landed, you have Lost Tribe, the Rich Explorer, Naked Brutality, and of course custom, and then Steam Workshop, right? So if you want to get into custom worlds, definitely you can get into that, but today we're going to be looking at really just all of our vanilla options. So no workshop, no mods, none of that, 100% pure vanilla. So now the standard is crash landed, and that's what we're going to play, but I do want to look at the other 5 options that you have. So you get Lost Tribe, and it just, each scenario gives you a little description, also tells you how many people you're going to start with, tells you what you're going to start with, and it tells you what is on the map. So regardless of which tile you select, and we'll go ahead and see that here in a minute, you're gonna get these different items on the map somewhere. So you're not necessarily going to start with them near your crew. So when you crash land, your 3 people all land with these items really close to them, so it's like in their pod when it crash landed, right? Whereas these items maybe fell off of the ship or whatever was also happening to fall into the atmosphere. So these are going to scatter around the map, so they're not going to be immediately next to your characters. But it is important to note that these are still going to be items that we want to kind of take note of, because they will be very useful, such as the steel and those meals early game are very, very important. And of course, we'll see that. So Lost Tribe, you start with a bit more people. You start with 5, right? But notice, we don't start with nearly the same stuff, and we don't even start with scattered stuff either. So definitely if you want more of a kind of ground up from 0 to hero, Lost Tribe, pretty good. Then, of course, the Rich Explorer, you start with just 1 person, but also note you start with some gun turrets. So you do start with research, which is fairly helpful. It's a nice little scenario. But notice we start with a lot of money, so trading is going to be very important for us. However, we are going to also kind of have a hard time defending ourselves. So, of course, we do have a lot of the higher end items, but can we defend ourselves, right? Because strength in numbers could be something we want to consider. Naked Brutality is honestly the true 0 to hero, because you have literally nothing. And as you can see, there's a big warning. There is nothing fair about it. It's going to be incredibly difficult. I honestly would only recommend this once you've probably mastered Crash Landed, and have most certainly mastered probably even like Lost Tribe or something. Now, one thing to note is this is just your scenario. This doesn't dictate the difficulty, which again, there'll be another screen we'll take a look at here in a minute as well. And of course we have Mechanator, so if you want to do like robot, like Terminator, this is kind of the way to go. And then of course we have vampires, because, you know, it wouldn't be a game without vampires. And so this is just basically a scenario where you become a vampire and you have minions to feed you blood. So of course, if you want to go kind of if you want to go less sci-fi and more fantasy, definitely this is the one for you. And of course, you can see all the different things you get. It is important to note that some of these later ones are DLC, so if you don't have any of the DLC, you probably won't see some of these. But Crash Landed is vanilla. It is no DLC. And so this is, again, the one we're going to play, just so that way the most amount of players can have it as an opportunity. And I'll also make sure that as we go through any items or any actions that are DLC related, I'll try to point them out. I might miss 1 or 2 because I'm not necessarily a 100% expert in what is or isn't a DLC, but I will try to point out the things that I know for sure are DLC items, just that way nobody gets confused about, oh, well, I saw this mechanic, I was hoping it was going to be in the game, but it's in a DLC. But I'll try my best to point out things, and if any of you guys see something that I missed, make sure you guys leave that in the comment section just so we can help everybody out. So we're going to go ahead and hit next. So here's kind of our flavor enhancers, right? So if the scenario was our basic component, well, now we're going to flavor enhance. So we have different storytellers. Basically, how are things going to evolve in our game? So we have Cassandra Classic, really just an overall amazing experience that we can have, and it's really great, right? So I'm going to strongly recommend you start with Cassandra Classic, just because you're going to get kind of the best baseline experience of RimWorld possible with her. If you want to spice things up, right? And so a quick kind of side note, the storytellers are separate from the difficulty ratings, and we'll see that here in a second. So Cassandra Classic is a great linear progression. Pretty good, pretty average. You're going to have a nice linear kind of slope up the difficulty hill. Now, if you want something a little more relaxed, right? So not as linear in terms of difficulty, you could take on Phoebe Chillax, right? And so as she says, she'll give you more time between disasters, right? So you'll have more time to prepare for things. However, beware, at higher difficulties, she'll hit as hard as anyone. Basically meaning, so if Cassandra Classic was like a linear function of difficulty, so she slowly gets more difficult over time, Phoebe Chillax might be more of like an exponential, right? So sure, you have more time between the problems, but eventually those problems are going to hit really, really hard when they do finally start hitting. So I would not recommend Phoebe as your first. I'd probably say definitely maybe your second playthrough if you don't necessarily want to scale difficulty. But if you want just some added flavor, right? Some more enhancements. And then of course, if you really want to be very adventurous, we have Randy Random. Now, as his name suggests and as the warning will tell you, he basically makes the game completely random. You might have a very easy game even on losing is fun, right? So you might pick max difficulty with Randy Random, and you just might have honestly the easiest game you've ever played. But on the same time, you might pick peaceful basically, and he's going to give you nothing but hell. He's going to throw nothing but terrible scenarios at you, because sure, peaceful does make it so that you have more stuff, more time, but Randy Random is going to find a way to even make peaceful difficult, right? And so Randy Random is for the people you've played Cassandra Classic, you've done the baseline of RimWorld, you've played Phoebe Chillax, you've really mastered both the mid and end games, and you just want something to spice it up, but not quite to the point where you want to get into the modded community, because although this game has incredible, amazing mods, they do start to really overhaul and change the game and for good instances. But I feel like that starts to get away from what makes RimWorld a really, really good game. And Randy Random is kind of that bridge between the two, right? So if you're not quite ready to overhaul the game and play modded, Randy Random is definitely that difficulty option to where you can just really test your skills, really test whatever it is you think you're just trying to explore. So of course we're going to go with Cassandra Classic, and then let's take a look at all our difficulties. So we have Peaceful. This is definitely if you are brand new to the game, or even just brand new to Colony Sims, I would probably recommend Peaceful. But I'm going to put a big but here. I think most players should try to start on Adventure Story, because it's going to be a little bit more difficult, sure. As you can see, it's recommended for experienced strategy gamers on their first game of RimWorld. So not only do I recommend it, but the game recommends it. And the reason I recommend it is because you're going to get that level of difficulty where you're going to be pushed with every event, but not to the point where, oh my god, this game is way too difficult, I don't like it, I'm going to refund it. No. It's going to give you just enough difficulty that it's going to be like, okay, failing is kind of fun, because you're going to see it. You might survive an event, but you might lose somebody, or you might have half your base destroyed, but not to the point where you give up. It's going to be just enough to keep you going. So it is going to be there. The difficulty is always going to be there, but it's not going to be to the point where soul-crushing difficulty. I recommend it. Now, of course, if you want to go really, really hard, you can go Strive to Survive, right? So maybe you've played 1 or 2 playthroughs and you really want to kind of push yourself, and of course Blood and Dust, and then of course Losing is Fun. And then if all of that doesn't satisfy, you can go ahead and make a custom difficulty, and these are just basically all the sliders that all the other difficulties have. So I think if we press, oh, it's not going to show it. Okay, I was going to say maybe it will show us what it moves. So of course you can change threat scaling, you can change general settings, and just overall different things you might want. But for our case, and this also just helps if you decide, well, I want Cassandra Classic for that linear story progression, but I want a unique twist. Perhaps I want, maybe I'm really into Star Wars, so I'm going to have child aging rate maxed out, right? So you're going to have like a clone trooper thing. And of course, again, there are mods that do some of these things, but if you just want a vanilla experience to be able to earn achievements and things, because I think there's achievements, don't quote me on that, but it's still one of those nice little unique things that we can have. So of course I'm going to click Adventure Story. I know these last two options, these aren't necessarily difficulty settings, however they are settings that do alter how hard a game is. So you have reload anytime, right? So if you want saves to be able to, say you made a bad decision, so you decided, oh, I'm going to open up this room in a mountain because I found it, or I'm going to open up this ancient danger. And of course, those things we'll get into. For those of you who are experienced RimWorld players, or have at least played a couple playthroughs, you're probably aware of what those things are. However, if you're brand new, don't worry, we'll get into those in due time. So reload anytime. You basically, you can have more than one save. So it's allows us to save, come back to it. Oh, we don't like the choice you made. Okay, we're going to roll back to a new save. If you keep it enabled, that's what you get. If you disable it, so if there's not a little green check mark, so say we click commitment mode, it's like Iron Man mode. So as the little quote says, there's a reason Luke Skywalker didn't quit and reload when his family got killed. Loss and recovery is dramatic. So this basically allows you to only save when you quit. So if you want a true like progression of there's no going back, right? So every hard choice you make is a commitment. And that is something I would recommend for your second playthrough, because once you've kind of gotten the core mechanics under your belt, you've beat one playthrough on Reload Anytime, that's when I would say play Commitment Mode. Same difficulty, same Cassandra Classic, but this time play Commitment, because I'm betting you're going to make some different choices, both from your experience in the first playthrough, but I'm betting you're also going to make some different choices just from looking at, okay, I want to make sure that doing something is more thought out, and you'll notice that when you play Commitment. But we're going to play Reload Anytime, just so that way we can kind of have that most baseline playthrough, plus in case I mess something up, I want to be able to roll back, or if I made a bad decision, I want to be able to roll back, just so that way I can kind of show you guys the kind of the ropes of the game. So of course now we're going to hit next, and it also note storyteller and playstyle can be changed at any time. So if you decide, you know what, I picked too easy of a difficulty, I want to go up one, you can. Or vice versa. Say you picked Randy Random on Losing is Fun, but you just don't like it, whether it's because it's too hard or even too easy. Then you might decide, maybe I want Phoebe Chillax on Adventure, right? So of course you can change those as you play through. So don't feel as though this is a hard 100% commitment, and we might even change our difficulty as we play through. So we're going to go ahead and hit next. So now we need a seed. So I think the seed we're going to go with is Ravaged. So of course, if you want to play along on the same seed as me, there's our seed. And of course you can hit randomize. We can also do global coverage. Now note, it will take longer for the world to generate if you do 100%. You don't need to do 100%. I'm only going to do 30, but if you want 100%, go for it. Now, of course, I'm going to leave everything else as default. I'm also going to not touch factions, and we're going to go ahead and hit generate. So, of course, it's going to take a second to generate, and as you can see, we have no mods, and then we're playing with biotech, ideology, and royalty. So here is 30% of RC generated. So I believe if you generate 100%, it's still this section, but like all the planet is generated. So this is what we have to work with. So we have different biomes, and there's also hills and mountains. So if we just zoom in to, say, here, this is a pretty good snapshot of the world. So these darker sections, these are temperate forests, but notice it's impassable. So if we selected this, it's going to be a fairly difficult scenario for us. But now say we picked this one right here. We get a temperate forest, which is mountainous. Now we can see the planet tells us the seed, tells us coverage. Awesome. But then if we click terrain, the button next to it, we see what it is, how difficult is it to move. And what this tells us is how fast will our people move. It also tells us what stone might be here, what elevation, temperatures, our growing period. This is something important to note. For an easier playthrough, I would recommend finding something that's year-round growing, and that's what we're going to do. It also tells us rainfall, how many berries, can animals be here, and anything else we might need to know. So a quick overview is, so anything, say in the tundra or icy, that's going to be very, very difficult. Anything in the desert or tundra area over here, it's going to be a little harder. Maybe not necessarily as hard as the ice biome, but still kind of hard. Then, of course, there's, I believe, just another forest type, and temperate forest. We're going to play temperate forest. The boreal forest is similar to like a rainforest, and the idea that you're going to have a little bit more disease frequency. And then there's also over here, so we have an actual tropical rainforest. So here, so notice, you also get a nice little description. So if we click, where is it, up here? So forest of carnivorous trees, right? So we're gonna have very harsh winters. So think like Alaska or Canada. And then say down here in the rainforest, think of like South America, or even the southeast of maybe like some swampland in the United States. That might be some sort of area where you're gonna have, and of course then you get some shrubland, some deserts, and then extreme deserts, right? So if you want to play more of like a nomad-y kind of sand world, that's an option. Or if you want to play more of an ice biome, that's something. So we're gonna go ahead and find somewhere to pick. And of course there's rivers nearby we can also choose to live near. And then these things are roads. So you have dirt roads, regular roads, and then basically highways effectively. So you have different tiers, and they provide different movement bonuses that you'll see. So like this tile has a movement bonus of 4. But then if we click here, this one has a movement difficulty of 0.5, meaning we move very quickly on it. If we click here, notice also 0.5. So it's important to live near a road for questing and whatnot. I think we're going to settle down. We don't want to settle down too close to any major faction that could be a problem for us, because it could mean a lot of raids. I'm going to say we live here. I want to live just a little bit further south. I don't want to live here because there is some radiation we'd have, or pollution we'd have to deal with. So let's see. I want to try to live a little bit further south. So we do have some year-round growing here. So I think we could probably get away with something like that. Yep, so temperate rainforest. Let's see. Yep, we'll live right here. This looks like a good spot. So I'm picking right here near Lake Nova. So if anybody wants to play on the exact same map as well, this is the one we're playing at, near these crossroads. Give you guys a second. Cool. All right, so with that, we're gonna go ahead and hit next. And so lastly, so ideology, this is one of the DLCs. So this mechanic is, I believe, only here if you have the DLC, or in at least this part down here. I'm pretty sure this top section, right? So classic RimWorld without the ideology system. So if you decide you don't want to play with the DLC, so I have it. So if I said, I don't want to play with it, I don't like it, you can select without. And of course, notice, good for your first few games. I would recommend you don't touch ideology for your first game. It is quite a in-depth system, but it allows you to have a really nice custom game, if nothing else. So I think for now, we are going to leave it. I think we're going to do classic like. And as you know, the game does try to help a little bit in terms of descriptions. So it tells you some mild flavorings. We're going to do classic like. So we'll have ideology, but it's not going to be too wild or out there. And that will just be a nice little generic. And of course, there's some other ones we can have as well. And it tells you the different bonuses we can have. And of course, if you want to go some crazy intense, you can do that. I believe you can also make a custom one if you choose as well. But we're just going to do classic like. We're going to hit next. And so now we get to create our characters. So we're going to have character selection. RimWorld generates colonists, right? Based on just different skills and backgrounds, and each colonist is going to have different strengths, different weaknesses, so it's very essential that you choose wisely. Now, I'm not going to say spend 20 hours hitting the randomize feature until you get the most optimal layout possible, because then you're just kind of gaming the system, and I'm an advocate for play the games you want to play the way you want to play them, right? So if you do want to play min-max strats, go for it. But again, with this being a beginner-friendly series, I'm going to just kind of leave it more so as is. If I see anything crazy bad on any of these guys, I'll of course switch that out, but otherwise they'll probably pretty much be what they are when we go in. And of course, there's all sorts of little things to note about them. So we can see like the age, names, we can change their names. We can also see xenotypes, see what faction they're a part of, and see kind of any creeds they might have. We can also see favorite colors, childhood, and these are just things that contribute to their overall character. And so we can see here that Horn has a passion for mining, and that's what the two flames represent. And then she has an interest in animals and an interest in intellect. We can also see any traits, so she works better at night. And we can also see that we have nothing that we're incapable of, and we can also see what she's going to come with. So we're going to get some extra potatoes. We can also see some relationships. So it's important to note that if for whatever reason we decided to say pick this person, well, she really likes her father and her uncle. So we might find these people at some point. They might be part of a wandering caravan. They might be part of a raiding group. They might be part of any number of places on the planet. So these relationships are important. They might be people here that we can select currently, or it might be people that we're going to encounter later in the game. And so it's something to note that trying to get people who have positive traits of their relations are very useful, because if we ever capture these people to try to make them join us, we can maybe have Horn try to interrogate them, or I guess convert them to try to get them to join us, and they would be more likely to with this. However, it is also a double-edged sword, because there's a good chance that if this person also likes Horn, that she might be willing to leave us and join them. So it is something we have to be careful of, because that could be an event that takes place. Of course, we can also hit randomize, and we can decide, do we want an adult, a child, or even a baby? So be careful with those. And then, of course, different xenotypes. So we can perhaps have a dirt mole or have baseliners. So these are just like different races, effectively, or different species. And then, of course, we can see team skills. So team skills is, as it implies, our current basically arrangement. So we have a lot of mining, we have a lot of construction, a little bit of shooting, but there's some interest in it. We're okay on melee. We're definitely not great on cooking. And hopefully nobody scrapes their knee, because we are terrible at doing anything medical. But we have an interest in plants, and we're very intellectual. So our current configuration means we can pretty much build and research pretty quickly, but we can't really defend ourselves. And if we don't defend ourselves, and if we get hurt, that's not going to go well, and our cooking is crap. So probably want to look to change somebody out. Now, from what it looks like, Horn seems like a pretty overall. No cooking or plant skills, but they're not incapable of learning it. And so even though she has a 0 for cooking and plants, it doesn't mean she won't learn it eventually. It just means she's not going to be our main person for those things. However, she'll probably be our main miner to mine things, but on the map we're on, mining's not going to be too important. Now, if we did a mountainous map, that would be a very important skill to have. Let's see. We have space text. We're incapable of mining. Well, that's okay, because we're not really going to be doing a whole lot, I don't think. We're hypersensitive. So this might be something we decide to change out. Ooh, we're incapable of carrying animals or cooking. Those are some things we're going to need. But notice, we get plate armor. So this might be something worth keeping. So of course, those are just little things we want to keep note of. I think we're going to change out Braz. So we're going to go ahead. We can either change him out with somebody we have, of which I don't really like any of them. So we're going to hit randomize. Ooh, but notice we get cataracts. So now we have some health concerns. So of course, as you can see, if we keep hitting random, the bar at the bottom changes. So now we have somebody, they hate their ex-lover. So they hate this person. So this would not be a good person to have on our team, because they're violent. They're incapable of violent. However, they hate their ex-lover who's going to be with us. So although they seem like a fairly decent person, because we have both of these two, it would be recommended we get rid of one. So I'm going to say we get rid of this one. And of course, as you can see, you can keep hitting random until you roll something really good. So like, this wouldn't be a bad one. Now, staggeringly ugly means people aren't going to be so happy to be around her, but overall, not too bad. But now we still don't have somebody who can cook, and we still don't have somebody who can do medical. We would prefer somebody who can be a cook and a medical person. Cook. Okay, that's not bad. We get a little passion for everything. We can't be violent, so it means we only have 2 defensive people. But as you can see, you can spend quite a long time. Also, take note of their age. So you have a biological age, and then you have a chronological age. Biological is basically how long have they been physically moving around or alive. And so it says 29 years. However, they have a chronological age of 51. And so all that means is they were born 51 years ago, but at some point they were in hypersleep. So for instance, Sarah here is 1004 teen, meaning she's quite old chronologically. Now biologically, not very old. So it's important that we need to take aware of that, because we might not want somebody who's this old, because they might have problems that we're unaware of. But for us, that should be fine. We still don't have anybody who can cook, though. We want to try to avoid anybody with any sort of addictions on our main, or for our first playthrough. I would like that this person would work great. Eh, you're a cannibal. Never mind. That's not terrible. Nudist brawler. Again, we need somebody who can cook and somebody who can be a doctor without an addiction. This person seems really good. However, actually no, this person actually seems incredibly good. We're gonna keep him. I know we don't have anything for medical and anything for cooking, like at all, but that's fine. Because for this playthrough, our goal is just to have a very beginner-friendly thing. And so I'm gonna go ahead and put in a cut here because I have our crew. I think we're ready. And of course, you can just go ahead and see kind of what we have. So you can go ahead and hit pause. And I'll see you guys in episode 1. So hope you guys enjoyed kind of our setup. If you guys stick through the whole video, the whole 31 minutes, thank you guys for all watching. If you haven't already, hit the like button. Hit the subscribe button, turn on the little bell notification as it really helps out the channel, helps show your support, and it's 100% free. And if it's free, you might as well, right? And if you have any questions, comments, or concerns for me, leave those down below. And with that, let's get right into a new series. So I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching. Have a good one. Peace out.